Let's be honest, debt affects us in very different ways. For some, it's an emotional burden that they have to deal with every single day. And for others, it's just something in their life that they have to work towards getting rid of it. But I generally think that debt is the biggest barrier towards wealth generation. Most of us have some sort of debt, ranging from credit cards to personal loans, business loans, and mortgages. And sometimes the process of trying to become debt-free can be so challenging. Because of the limited resources and the competing needs that we have, sometimes the process of paying off debt can be one of the most stressful things you have to deal with. That's why having a strategy that not only motivates you but also helps you to stay on track and actually helps you to pay off your debt faster is very important. In today's video, I'm going to share with you two strategies that have been widely studied and they have proven to help people pay off their debt faster or help them to stay motivated on their journey towards becoming debt-free, and also helping them understand their debt. If you're trying to become debt-free, the first thing you have to understand is what you're dealing with, and that is actually the debt itself. You have to know whom you owe and how much you owe them and what is the interest rate on those debts. So the first thing you have to do is actually put down a list of all the debt that you have and put down the interest rate and the total balance. That way you actually have a number that you know is what it's gonna take to make you debt free. Having that number is actually the first step towards becoming debt free, because it shows that you're being responsible and you understand what it's gonna take to get you out of debt. Once you have that number down, it's easier to work on different strategies to pay it off. But if you just have debt and you don't know who you owe, you don't know the interest rate, things could be actually accumulating and just making the situation worse for you, but you actually don't know. So the first method or the first strategy would be the debt snowball method. Like the name suggests, it's like a snowball effect, so it builds up over time. This method was made popular by Dave Ramsey. And what it requires is that you pay down your debt, starting with the smallest debt you have and then going through all the debts you have, and your biggest balance should be the last debt that you pay. What you're required to do is that you put down a list of all your debts, starting with the smallest balance to the biggest balance with all their interest rates. And at the end of the month, the first thing you do is you pay off the minimum balance on all those debts. Once you have paid off all the minimum balances, this method assumes that you have extra money to spend towards debt repayment. You take all that money that you have left and you pay off, put it towards your smallest balance. For instance, if you have a $500 credit card and you have a $5,000 personal loan and a $10,000 business loan, what this method requires is that you pay off the credit card first. So after you pay off the minimum at the end of the month on all your loans, you take all the amount of money that you have that you want to spend towards your debt and you put it towards the $500 credit card. So the benefit of the snowball method are purely psychological. What it does is that when a person sees that they've paid off one account and they've closed it off and onto the next, that just motivates them to stay on course. They can actually see the results of what they're doing, and that is the motivation that a lot of people who are trying to be debt free are trying to look for. A study by the Harvard Business Review showed that if you compare the different strategies that people use to pay off debt, this is one of the methods that actually helped people to pay off more debt, because of the psychological impact it has on people. The biggest criticism on the debt snowball method is that it actually takes a little bit longer to pay off your debt, because when you focus on the little smaller balances, you're paying more in interest expense on the bigger balances, and that actually increases the balance that you have, and it therefore takes a little bit longer for you to pay off your debt. But if you're just somebody who is starting out and you're struggling to actually stay focused on the journey, then this is the best method for you, because you see the results and it motivates you, and then you actually get in the habit and you have that momentum going for you. Strategy number 2 is the debt avalanche method or the interest rate method. As the name suggests, this method requires that you should pay off your debt according to the interest rate. So you take the debt with the highest interest rate on it, and that's the debt that you should focus on and pay it off first. So at the end of the month, you list all your debt with the interest rate and the minimum payment. You pay off the minimum payment on all your debt, and then anything that's remaining that you need to spend towards debt repayment, you put it towards the debt with the highest interest rate. The advantages of this method are purely mathematical, and it takes out all the emotion out of the equation. But as we know, emotions are actually the biggest motivators to people trying to get out of debt. This method makes mathematical sense because it actually helps you to reduce the total balance that you end up paying at the end of the day by reducing the interest expense that you'll be paying on all your debt. So what this method ends up doing is that it actually helps you to pay off your debt first, but that's only for those people that can stick to this method and think about it straight from a numbers perspective, and have that focus and motivation to just keep paying off and seeing the numbers reduce. But for a lot of people, emotions are involved, and when emotions are involved, sometimes the avalanche method does not work. The other challenge of using the debt avalanche method is that it ends up taking a huge sum of money from you in the beginning, and so it doesn't free up any money that you need to use towards your savings or your emergency funds. If anything happens, you've spent all your money towards paying off your debt and you don't have anything left for emergencies. That's actually one of the advantages of the debt snowball method, because if you're focusing on the smaller balances, you're left with some money that can be used to do other things like creating your emergency funds and building up your savings, so that when you get to a point where you're paying off a lot of money in debt, you actually have something that you can fall back onto. The third and last strategy is the debt tsunami method. What this method is purely emotional. It requires you to pay off your debt according to the debt that's causing you the most emotional stress. It doesn't matter the balance, it doesn't matter the interest rate. Whatever is causing you the most emotional distress is the one that you pay, and then you move on to the next one, and it's literally just the impact of that debt on your emotions. I can see how this is very practical, because there are debts that you have that you just can't sleep because you keep thinking about them, even though those debts might actually not have any interest attached to them or might not be a huge balance. They just cause you emotional stress, and I think for a lot of people, this is actually a method that they can use to just go ahead and pay off all those debts, and then they can actually focus on their life and focus on other things that matter. From a financial standpoint, this is not the best strategy to use, because it will mean that you are accumulating a lot of interest expense. It will also mean that it takes you longer to pay debt, because you're paying your debt based off of your emotions. So if your debt is really not causing you any emotional stress, then you don't see the need to pay off your debt. Every time I think about these strategies, I end up feeling a little confused, because they are very clear, but they're also very challenging, and there are specific things that are attractive about each method. And from doing research, a lot of people actually advise that you should use a combination of these three methods to pay off your debt. If you're just starting out and you feel like the challenge for you is having that momentum, then you should start using the debt snowball method. And once you achieve the momentum and you feel like you're on track, then you can switch up and start using the debt avalanche method. If you're somebody who does not mix finances and emotions, which would be ideal, then the avalanche method is for you, because it's proven to be the method that will actually help you pay off your debt faster. I don't think you need to just use one method. I think you need to use a combination of either 2 methods or 3 methods to stick to that journey and end up becoming debt free. That's it for this video. Come back next Friday for videos like this.